The house I grew up in is just behind me here, and we moved in when I was in about my mid-teens, and then I would walk to Wellington High School, which is about 15 minutes down in that direction, and then I'd walk to Victoria University, which is about 15 minutes in that direction. Moved in as a teenager, moved out in my 20s sometime, went overseas. When I got back in 2010, I was staying with my folks for a while until my wife and I got a place in Northland, which is where we are now. Ate here on a far more regular basis than I should have. But I was a teenage boy, and you know, you could consume pretty much anything, it was fine. And it's a really lovely family who have been here since well before I got into the valley. And this particular video store is world famous, at least here in Aro Valley. When I first started coming here and whiling away my youth, they had just invented this thing called the compact disc. Get some fish and chips from down the road from the Aro Street Fish Shop, and kind of walk up and then just watch really bad movies and eat fish and chips, and that was pretty much my teenage years. This is the Wellington High School library. I was a terrible student, you know. I talked in class, I didn't go to class, I didn't do my assignments, I didn't do my homework. I sort of chafed against authority. I was great at English, you know, could write really well and loved writing, loved creative writing. So I was 12, and I was sitting at the back of the class in my intermediate school. My teacher had obviously been talking for a while, but the first words I heard him say were, "Countries go to war over things like this." And that really grabbed my attention. And it was the morning after the Rainbow Warrior had been bombed in Auckland Harbour by the French Secret Service. It kind of outraged me, and so really in that moment was when I became an environmentalist. So I was sitting on the floor watching an election debate in the 1990 general election. You know, it's my last year of high school, and the Green candidate, this guy called Gary, just talked about things that I thought were really important, right? Like the state of the planet that we live on, and, you know, where we're going to be able to have enough resources to be able to share around, and those kinds of issues. So I went up to Gary at the end of it and I said, you know, how can I help? So I ended up volunteering on the Wellington Central campaign for a guy called Stephen Rainbow, who was running for Wellington Central for the Greens that year. And that kind of, I guess, started my political journey. I'm kind of lucky in that I'm a Wellington-based MP, so we see each other for breakfast, certainly during sitting weeks because I have to be in Wellington. But it is a discipline to make sure that you don't just fill up every available moment, and I think it's pretty easy to do that. But I think that just comes with experience. You know, I was raised by a solo mum until I was, I can't remember exactly when, but it was about 10, 11, 12, something like that. So my other mother, mum's partner, they met and have been together ever since. I mean, they both mean an enormous amount to me. They've been huge supporters of me in my political career. I was living in London, I wasn't working, and I was so poor I was eating a can of baked beans a day. London is a very hard city to be broke in. Definitely, for sure, the lowest moment of my life. And the thing was that on the other side of that, I kind of thought, well, if that's rock bottom, then actually everything else is fine. So I think I've had a sense of perspective since then. A couple of years after that, decided that I was going to come back and run for Parliament. I thought I need to give myself some endurance because this is going to be a marathon. So I did the London Marathon, and I'd never run before. Ran it and completed it. Like, while I'm clearly not marathon fit now, in a kind of running sense, in a physical sense, that kind of knowing what endurance feels like, you know, in your mind, I think has been like everything in this job. And my mum used to have one of those. We're helping to serve lunch at the Newtown Community Centre. So this is a community facility where anybody who would like some kai can rock up at lunch and be served as part of the community. This is really what works, right? Is community. People caring for other people, including people that they've never met before. In 2011, I was number 15 on the Green Party list, and we got 14 MPs elected. Kennedy Graham, who was one of our MPs at the time, and a big rugby fan, said, you know, sometimes the ball bounces towards you and sometimes it bounces away. You just play the best game that you can, you know, but it's a funny shaped ball. I'd like to do the Te Araroa trail, you know, the length of New Zealand. I think that would be an amazing experience and things that I don't really kind of get time for now. In terms of work, I mean, I'm a climate change guy, right? So if I'm doing it in politics, I'll be trying to fight the climate crisis, and if I'm not in politics, I will also be fighting the climate crisis.